do afternoons in Salt Lake. Only spent like 6 months there. Enjoyed the Olympics when they were out there. And then a buddy of mine called 6 months later and said, hey, I got an offer. If you'd like to come back to Jersey, the Jersey Shore, and do mornings at a station I was previously at. It was a better offer. My family and friends are back east.
Yep.
So I took that, and then more recently, I've spent 7.5 years in Lancaster, PA. Worked for Hall Communications in Lancaster as well. And then they transferred me back up here where I'm now doing afternoons on Roxy FM, the sister station where Shane works, at WCTY. And on weekends, I'm at WAF in Boston. So, like
Lands
yourself,
all over
sir,
the place.
now we're podcasting. And it was Shane's idea. He came out to me a couple weeks ago into the Roxy studio and doing what we always do. We're just talking about sports. And then he goes, and it's so funny that he asked me because I've been wanting to get into the whole world of podcasting. And he said, "You want to do a podcast?" I'm like, my eyes just lit up. Like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we were both. We started just putting ideas back and forth, and it really we hit the ground running with it. So I almost forgot. I went on Facebook Live, so we're on Facebook Live now.
Oh, jeez, I took off my glasses.
So, come on, nobody cares about glasses. I couldn't figure out how to do it on our page, but I'm on
I didn't think we were going to go Facebook Live on the first podcast.
Why not?
Right,
Why
okay.
not?
All
Yeah,
right.
then we can go back and we can take people's criticism and that kind of thing. And, this is a sports podcast, so let's talk about sports, huh?
Why not? Yeah, I know. That was a fine introduction.
Break down some of these matchups in the first round of the playoffs. We'll start with my team. How about the definition of backing into the playoffs? My Detroit Lions now have to go on the road to Seattle. After 3 weeks ago, they were in the driver's seat to win the NFC North.
Seems like
they were in a position to get the number 2 seed and have a first-round bye.
You're such a nice guy. I don't want to have to kill your team, but I'm sure you'll jump on board with
Trust me, I've said it. Whatever you're going to say about the Lions, I've already said it.
I feel like it's the same thing every year with the Lions. Like, oh my God, this is the year. And I think I said this when they were in the driver's seat. I said this to you in the hallway maybe, I don't know, a month or so ago. I said, wouldn't that be funny if they make a run to the Super Bowl without Calvin Johnson?
Yeah.
Without Megatron.
Well, they did it the year after Barry retired early. They made the playoffs that year for the first time in a while. And now the year after... And if you really take a look at the season, the fact that they're 9-7, the fact that they're in the playoffs, when this season started, all of the experts were saying the Lions are a last-place team. Worse than the Bears. The Lions are a last-place team. So if you step back a little bit and you look at the season they had, they're 9-7, they had a pretty successful season for Lions standards. But if you look at the fact that they had a good run in the middle of the season, they started out 1-3, then they had... a 7-1 run, and then they went 1-3 again in the last 4 games. So you're in that 9-4, you're in the driver's seat, you have 3 tough games ahead of you, and you lose all 3. And the only reason they're even in the playoffs is because the Washington Redskins lost to the Giants on the last.
That's another awful organization. But I will give you this. In those last 3 games, you played you played the Packers and the Cowboys. Packers are the hottest team in football, next to like the Patriots or even Pittsburgh for that matter.
But in both of those games, they ran right with them in the first half, and they sucked in the second half. Absolutely played terrible football.
Weird, because that was the total opposite thing. Because you guys were like the best fourth quarter team in football for a stretch there.
For a long time. Well, and part of I've watched more Lions games than most people, and part of the thing there is that their offense would go dormant for 45 minutes in the middle of the game. They'd start off good, kind of like the season, but they'd start off well, and they'd get a lead, and then their offense would just disappear long enough for that team to come back and take the lead in the fourth quarter.
Stafford has had a pretty decent year. I mean, who do you place the blame on for that?
I honestly don't know who to place the blame on, because is it the coordinator? Everybody's putting all this praise on Jim Bob Cooter.
Yeah, he might be up for some gigs. I mean, come on.
For the last 2 games of the season here, the offense played great in the first half. He tried to make some adjustments, but those adjustments were getting away from what was working in the first half. They ran the ball very well for the first time in a long time. In the first half against the Cowboys, and in the first half against Green Bay with Zach Zenner. Second half abandoned that. Like, Zach Zenner just disappeared in the second half of both of those games. Why?
What's he doing? I mean, why are they straying from what they were doing that was working?
It might be more of the opposing defense being better at making adjustments than, because Cooter, listen, he's been a coordinator for a year and a half. You know, he doesn't have the experience.
Maybe it's his last name, Cooter.
It could be. Jim Bob is his first name, so I don't. This guy is.
He deserves a gig with the Falcons or with the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
Stay down south, Jim Bob. No,
So long story short, I don't expect a lot from the Detroit Lions going to Seattle. The line right now is 8, and I'm very close to just wiping out my savings account and putting it on Seattle.
Yeah.
But I know what's going to happen is that the Lions will suck for 45, 50 minutes of that game, and then they'll make a crazy comeback toward the end and lose by 7, and then
Yeah, you guys don't have a chance in Seattle this weekend. For your sake, I hope they win because it'd be great to see Lions with an upset. Playoff football, nothing better. Actually, speaking of a game in Seattle, a playoff game, was it the Saints that went into Seattle a few years ago?
Yeah.
That wild, it was that run by, I can't even think of his name now.
Mark Ingram?
Yeah, was it Ingram?
Yeah.
Anyway, but I would love to see an upset because me being a Patriots fan, you never know. Lions, make a run, it'd be an easier path. We'll get to the whole AFC in a second.
Yep.
But I see Seattle winning that game. And then, did you want to get into the other wild card?
Yeah. Let's talk about Green Bay and the New York Giants.
Oh, man. Well, I'll say this right now. We're just talking about this before we turned on the mics and started doing podcast number 1 here, episode 1. As a Patriots fan, I want the Giants eliminated.
Right.
So I am a Green Bay fan in this game. They have been the hottest team. I'm not a huge Aaron Rodgers fan, but let's face it, next to Brady, he is the best quarterback in football. The fact that they were 4-6 at one point, which you look at that and go, in fact, you watch Rodgers a little bit closely, being an NFC North guy.
Yep.
I'm sitting there going, I was watching games early on in the year going, it seemed like Aaron Rodgers, and I'm watching his body language. I'm like, does he even care what's going on? I know he had family issues. He hasn't talked to his family in over a couple years. That's a whole other story. I know he had the most depleted team all year long, but you're seeing Green Bay 4-6, and then he goes on the record and said, I think we're going to run the table. Yep. And look at that, he does. And it doesn't surprise me because he's Aaron Rodgers.
The same thing happened last year. It was relax last year. Remember?
Relax, famous line.
They started off slow. He said relax. They made the playoffs. They didn't make a deep run in the playoffs, but I don't know. There's just something about that guy, and he is the most frustrating quarterback because several times Sunday night the Lions had him. They had him dead to rights, and he escaped, and that's when he's the most dangerous.
And he's running too. He's 33 years old, but during this, as I said early on in the year, you're thinking, this guy's having a terrible year. Now all of a sudden you look up after they run the table in the regular season, he's got 40 touchdown passes and 7 picks.
Yep.
You would have never thought that back when they were 4-6. Like, this guy has no chance of being an MVP. And now, I know we'll get to this another time, but I'll say right now, Aaron Rodgers. Surprise. Surprise. I'm not picking Tom Brady. I think should be the MVP, but we'll get to that. So I'm saying, I think, and God, I hope it comes true, Green Bay beats the Giants in the other wild card game.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think the Giants have the offensive firepower to even hang with a depleted Green Bay Packers secondary because they're pulling homeless guys off the street in Green Bay to play cornerback right now. They're in trouble.
I know the Giants won't have the offensive power because right now Victor Cruz, Odell Beckham are down in Miami partying with Bieber. Well, they were yesterday, which is all ridiculous.
I don't know.
I hope it comes back to bite them. They're the coach.
Anyway.
Coaches gave the approval.
Yeah, well.
So you like the Packers too, right?
Yeah, we both like the Packers. We both like Seattle. There's not a whole lot, of surprise, of shock element, I don't think, there in the NFC. Going over to the AFC now, you've got a real intriguing matchup in the Oakland Raiders and the Texans. I don't know what to think about this
Intriguing because, I don't know if you heard about this today, but the Texans have announced that Brock Osweiler is going to come back and be the starting quarterback for this game after being pulled, the last 2 games for this Tom Savage guy. Oakland, obviously we know, has a situation with Derek Carr being out. They're going with, it's not McGloin because he's hurt. I'm going to call him McGroin.
That's okay on a podcast. You can say so.
I don't know if it is McGroin that's bothered. But anyway, he went down. So I guess it's Connor Cook, which you're familiar with being a Michigan guy. He's a Michigan State guy. So it's Connor Cook against Brock Osweiler. And you know what? Here's my prediction. Osweiler, if he has any, he's getting paid, $70-75 million, which I think was flat out ridiculous. If I'm Brock Osweiler, this is just a hunch, I'm going to prove that they shouldn't have pulled me.
Yep.
I'm at home. It's a playoff game on national TV. I'm going to come out and prove something.
This is his big chance, yeah.
I'm going with the Texans in this one.
Wow. My heart just breaks for the Oakland Raiders. I'm not a huge Raiders fan, but I've always kind of followed them. And they finally, this year, in the beginning of the season, I picked two teams in the AFC that I thought were really going to break out. The Jacksonville Jaguars were one of them. That was a bad pick. The Oakland Raiders were the other one. They were inches away from a 2 seed and a bye in the first round, and their guy gets hurt, Derek Carr, and they're a totally different team right now. So, I think the Raiders are down and out. Like you said, the Texans, Osweiler has something to prove, and they're at home. So I got to go with the Texans on that one as well.
As I was about to ask you, you've seen Connor Cook more than I ever have. Does he, stepping into a playoff situation on the road, does he have anything in, or based on what you saw in college, can he pull off some kind of upset?
I don't care who you are. You haven't played pretty much all season long, and now you come into a hostile environment in the playoffs. That's just a tough situation to ask anybody to do.
Well, unless you're Tom Brady, who's 8-0 on the road this year.
Yeah, well, if he had been suspended for the entire season, and then the Patriots are a 6 seed, and he's got to go do it on the road,
right.
Well, it might be a different situation. But the other game in the AFC, for some reason, I'm drawing a blank. What is it?
Oh, it's I'm drawing a blank too. Miami at Pittsburgh.
Miami at Pittsburgh.
We've agreed on 3 games.
I know.
When are we going to disagree?
I think we're probably going to agree on this one too, because if anybody picks Miami, they probably need to get.
I almost think I should go with Miami because you're going to go with Pittsburgh now.
There you go.
Just give you a case for Miami. You know what? Go ahead. You're picking Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
We already established that. I'll go with Miami. Now,
okay.
Originally I was going to go with Pittsburgh. But you know what? For the sake of episode 1, I'm going to go with Miami.
There you go. Got to have a little bit of controversy
I'm really
here,
going.
Right?
I'm going to try and make a case for the Dolphins here. Although I do think, deep down inside, I do think the Steelers were going to be playing in Foxborough.
Yeah.
But as I said, I'll tell you right now, Miami can do this. I know Tannehill still hasn't been ruled out, so he may play. Earlier in the year, Miami did whoop up on Pittsburgh by 15, but that was down in Miami. There was no Roethlisberger. Right. It can be done. Do I think? Am I 100% sure? No. But just for the sake of, I'm going to go. I'll go with Miami in the upset.
I'd love to pick against Pittsburgh because they have another Michigan State guy themselves at running back there, Bell. But I just think Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, and they've got something to prove right now. Everything kind of came down to the wire for them in the division, and they're playing good football. They're kind of like the Green Bay Packers of the AFC right now. They're hitting their stride at the right time, and I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably going to make a run in the playoffs.
I know we're jumping ahead here. Well, do you just want? Do you want to do the entire? We'll just wait. We'll just
do it 1 week at a time. Right. But we can make Super Bowl picks right now if you want.
Well, we already talked about this. Want to talk about it?
We can.
I thought we were just stopping at the wild card thing here.
All right. Well, we'll move on. We'll talk about Super Bowl later on. I wanted to talk about one thing in particular as far as the weekend in college football and the college football playoffs, and we talked about it a little bit before, but the controversy surrounding Joe Mixon, the running back for Oklahoma, and Brett Musburger, his awkward,
very awkward
defense of him. I guess.
Before we get into this, it was during the Sugar Bowl last night, the Auburn-Oklahoma game, and before Shane fires us off, I just want to say, Musburger is a broadcasting legend. He is. His play-by-play is so-so, but I will say right now, a play-by-play guy should just stick to being a play-by-play guy. Yeah. We don't need an editorial, and this is kind of what you're going to hear here.
And Bob Costas has done this before too, but he's done a better job of it than Brett Musburger just did. So here it is. Okay, so Musburger. First of all, there are a lot of things that I agree with him in that people deserve second chances. This is the only video that we've seen. No man will lay his hands on a woman in that way one time in their life. I believe myself, seeing that video, that's not the only time that he's pulled that crap. Yeah. Period.
You're talking about,
Mixon.
Oh,
Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
That is not the only time he's done that. That's the only video we have. That's the only proof.
Right. And
guarantee that's not the only time he's done it.
Let me just say one thing about Musburger. We'll get back to Mixon for a second. If and maybe this is the radio in me, being, what am I trying to say? Being
critical.
Thank you, critical. I just think there's a time and a place for that, and that's like before or after the game.
Yeah.
When you're, I don't know who's doing color. Kirk Herbstreit? No.
Yeah.
No, he was doing the Rose Bowl. I can't think who was doing color at the time, but. Do it before the game. Do it after the game. Don't do it when it's 2nd and 9. Did you see he goes on this rant for 20 or 30 seconds. Okay, 2nd and 9.
That's what the guys at halftime are there for. That's why
Jeez.
First Take is on the air on ESPN and all the different shows. That's what they talk about.
Is that what they were saying? Because I missed First Take as well.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what those shows are for.
Yeah, exactly,
to talk about stuff like that. During the game, make it about the game.
Jeez,
it was just so awkward.
Yeah, now what you're saying about Mixon, this is a whole other story. I mean, that's such a cliche that get used to when I say that a lot. So I got to help me with that. But this happened a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
And
2014, I think.
You're saying there's a chance that this could have happened before too?
Not a chance. I would be willing to stake just about anything that I own on the fact that that's not the only time Joe Mixon has ever hit a woman. I'm just no one does that once. The vicious, he knocked her out right in the face.
Clocked her.
Okay, you're not a type of person that thinks that's okay and only does it once.
And just because she hit him first,
I don't care what she said to him. I don't care what she you don't do that. You hold her arms down so she can't hit you again until somebody else can de-escalate the situation. Emotions run high. Whatever. You just don't hit a woman like that in the face. I mean. It's unexcusable.
This is on Oklahoma too, and Bob Stoops. That he should have never been playing. And I'm going to get off the subject because it's something kind of similar here. Back when the Sandusky thing, I want to get into Penn State. You got to get into Penn State for a second. I'm sorry. This is kind of goes along the lines of should the person be playing or coaching?
Right.
Back when the Sandusky thing broke, on the day I got married, November 5th, 2011,
okay,
I had to go back on the air that Monday in Pennsylvania a week before we went on our honeymoon.
On your wedding day?
This happened on my wedding day. So I didn't even get the full story until right when I got back into Pennsylvania a day or two later. And I got the full story. Now keep in mind, when I was living in Lancaster, PA, that's like Penn State country.
Yeah.
They bleed white and blue. It's all about Penn State. It's like us up here with UConn. So the big question going into that week was, should Paterno coach that following Saturday? Should he be able to run out on the field against Nebraska, whoever they're playing? And I came right. My role in that morning show down in Lancaster was I was the news guy, but I was also kind of the loose cannon.
Okay.
And I was kind of the sarcastic idiot. But I went on and I was serious. I just laid it on the line. Said he should not be able to run out on the field and coach that team.
Yeah.
And the reason why it wasn't. Obviously Paterno didn't do those vicious acts. It was Sandusky.
Right. But he knew about it.
But I knew about it, and nobody. And I was surrounded by Penn State fans, including my good friend Dennis, who I did the morning show with.
Yep.
Him and I were going at it on the air. I said, Dennis, take the blinders off. You're telling me Paterno knew nothing about it? He should not be allowed to go on the field. And I was getting hate emails and hate voicemails when I got off the air. People said, how could he say this? And look what happens.
And that was people's biggest thing in the beginning of that. Well, maybe Paterno didn't know about it. Well, if he didn't know about it, that's just as big of a problem. Is something like that going on right under your nose and you're not seeing it?
And I put my balls on the line by saying that. Talking balls.
Hey.
You're right. I mean, that was a big chance I took. But look, it turns out I was right. I was absolutely right. And these Penn State fans, and that's why I will never. I don't hate anybody. I will always root against Penn State. And I have no ties to USC, but I was so happy when they won last night.
That was a heck of a game right there.
It was.
By the way, we've seen some fantastic bowl games. Not to quickly change the subject like that, but we've seen some fantastic bowl games this season. And I've been saying all year long how great the Big Ten is. They're the best conference in the country.
There's no question.
They didn't play like it in these bowl games. I mean, they didn't. Their actions did not say Wisconsin only beat Western Michigan by a touchdown. Yeah. Michigan lost to Florida State. Ohio State got absolutely embarrassed by Clemson. Penn State losing to USC. These are your best teams in the conference, and they all lost their bowl. Well, Wisconsin won, but against a team that had a great season but isn't on the same level. Are they the best conference in the land still?
Well,
I mean,
let's get into that. Just one more thing I want to finish up with Penn State, and this is it. I swear we'll move on and talk about the bowl games. Has nothing to do with the kids playing there now.
right.
Has nothing to do with James Franklin.
Absolutely.
It's about the program and their fans. I'm sorry. I mean, it was vicious acts that were done, and these fans have blinders on.
The culture of acceptance to an act like that is, that can't.
And the fact that, the Paterno's wins, were they reinstated again? I think they were. Because that's what really pissed me off.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't know that part.
His wins were vacated. Sorry. I know we have other things to talk about here.
This is old news. This is old news. But
anyway, I was saying, I was making the comparison with Mixon.
Yeah.
How would you agree that he shouldn't have played last night?
No, I don't think so. And
right.
I tweeted about it last night. Not only should he be banned from football, he should be banned from life because, like I said before, and we can go back and forth on this a lot, but that's just not something that you do one time in your life. Like if he had gotten a DUI, that's a mistake that okay, I can learn from this mistake. I'm not going to do it again. But to lay your hands in a woman's face like the way that he
Ray
did,
Rice.
yeah, and. Ray Rice still hasn't recovered from that, and
he'll never have a gig again.
No, and he was a great NFL player, and Joe Mixon is an average college running back. And
do you think Mixon ends up in the NFL? Do you think how high do you think he goes in the draft if that's the case?
Well, what I was hearing today, he's going to come back for another season, and we'll see what he does. I think that NFL teams are going to evaluate what he does on the field. They're going to take that into account, and it might hurt his draft stock a little bit. But ultimately, 10 years from now, we're not going to remember this incident. Like Joe Mixon is going to go on, he's going to have a career, and nobody's going to be talking about this, which is a shame. It's wrong, in my opinion, but it is what it is. Everybody, like Musburger said, everybody's allowed to make mistakes in life, but that's not a mistake. That's something that is ingrained into your mentality that it's okay to do. And I don't believe for a second that that's the only time he's ever done it.
And he took a shot from that girl, but still, there's no excuse. You never, ever lay a hand on a woman. I don't care if she knocks you the F out.
Yeah.
You don't get up and start doing stuff like that. It's just, it's ridiculous. It's just, you're right.
You call your girlfriend and get your girlfriend to go beat her up on another day. Then it's a girl fight, and it's fine. Everybody tapes it on YouTube, and it's a viral video, and no big deal.
And as far as second chances, I will go as far as say if he proved to if he went out and got help and he showed he was getting help.
Yeah.
I may be okay with, all right, let's give this guy a chance to play professional football.
Yep.
But has anybody heard anything? Is he going to seek help? No,
I don't know.
I don't think we've heard that.
We've heard a tearful apology from him 2 years later.
2 years later.
He wouldn't apologize if this video never came out.
Exactly.
He wouldn't have been apologizing. No one would have ever known about it. So I think this is an issue that the NFL in particular, there's guys like Greg Hardy and Ray Rice, he was the example, I guess, that he's not going to come back from what he did. But Greg Hardy did stuff just as bad over a long period of time and was allowed another chance in the NFL. And I never understood that situation. But I think that NFL has had a kind of aura of acceptance, aura of, we'll give him another chance, or we'll sweep it under the rug because he's a really good football player. And that's a problem.
The NFL
that's a serious problem.
Let's say it right now, the NFL doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
They absolutely don't. I mean, you see Greg Hardy, Ray Rice is a different story, but for the most part, Goodell, don't want to get into him right now, but it seems like the NFL just looks the other way in a lot of situations, with the exception of Ray Rice, who at one point, did you think he was eventually going to get picked up by another team?
I really did. I mean, there are teams out there, and the Lions being one of them, that had injury issues, that need a running back. I am shocked that nobody gave him another chance.
Because it is all about dollars in the NFL.
Yeah.
And, that's there's so many ways how they just turn the other cheek, because Goodell really, and you're seeing it right now, you're just seeing how the NFL is a huge moneymaker, and there's so many you look at so many character issues that you go, and all of a sudden you get so caught up in the game, you forget about these character things. I'm a fan. I admit, I forget about it.
We got a comment on here, and I haven't been doing a very good job of keeping a look on the comments. I'll go back and respond to as many as
gotta
I
get
can
an intern
afterward.
here eventually. I could actually
There you
do
go.
this, yeah.
But Jeff says, what proof do you have that he has done it before? I hate guys that hit women, but what is your proof? Well, I didn't say I had proof. It's just a hunch that a guy that thinks that act is okay doesn't do it only one time. You know what I mean? It's like the 17-year-old that gets busted drinking beer. And he said, oh, no, that's the first time I ever done it. Yeah, right, kid. You know what I mean? There is no proof. You're correct about that. But it's a hunch that I have that that's not the only time that he's done it.
And I didn't see the tearful video. Was it extremely tearful?
I didn't see it either, but I've heard from other people talking about it that it was a tearful apology. That's how I saw it described. So,
and this guy had 2 touchdowns last night, so he did play a role in that Sugar Bowl win.
he played a big role.
And when it was 35-13, I just moved into a brand new house, so I literally said, okay, I've seen enough. I mean, the Rose Bowl was exciting. Sugar Bowl had me for a little bit, like a half.
Yep. The Orange Bowl was...
The Orange Bowl, and you and I were texting during that game.
That was frustrating. And, the Wolverines came out flat. And
I wanted Michigan to win that game early.
Generally, you put that on the coaching staff. I don't know what Jim Harbaugh didn't do that he should have done to prepare the team for that. They were going into that. They were showing how Florida State players were relaxed. They were partying on South Beach, that kind of thing. And Michigan players were all business. And maybe that was a contributing factor to a slow start. Maybe he wore them out in practice that week.
Even though I'm trying to remember when I first texted you that night, I want to say it was almost like a 10-point Florida State lead. And I said, I don't know, this game has the makings of a crazy finish, and we certainly had it.
Obviously the word that Jabril Peppers wasn't going to play coming out right before the game started, that was discouraging.
Yeah.
And maybe that was something that, his team, sometimes a team can come together and rally for that player, and sometimes the team can come out and go, oh my God, we suck without Jabril. What are we going to do? And that's what happened.
Mentally, it could bring down,
It was 20-6 before you could. But the first drive was pathetic for Michigan's defense. There was only one other play, other than that first drive, that Florida State made in the entire first half, and that was a breakdown in the secondary and like a 99-yard touchdown. When they had Florida State against the ropes after a great punt. And a guy got open in the secondary, and they couldn't catch him. Well, if Jabril's in that game, that play doesn't happen. So it's a whole different. And then Jake Buck gets hurt, early in the second half, and he's out. So one of your most dynamic playmakers.
Do you like your quarterback, Spates?
I do. I think, he had some really good games early in the season against mediocre and the bottom of the barrel type competition. And people got a little too excited about him, kind of like what we were talking about with Carson Wentz earlier in the season, Philadelphia. Everybody was all renaming the towns after him and stuff. And I think Spate has the potential. He's going to come back for another season and another season under Jim Harbaugh's tutelage. I think he can be a really good quarterback.
You hope Harbaugh's back. If he doesn't go to the LA Rams or...
He's not. Why would he's got everything at Michigan. Why would he want to go back to the NFL? Here's the thing with Jim Harbaugh is that his shtick gets old in the NFL. But in college, these kids are a little bit more receptive to that hard-nosed attitude. And listen, throughout the course of the regular season, I've said maybe Harbaugh can do double duty and help coach the Lions, too, because they need a guy to come in there and kick some of their asses. Because there are times
Caldwell's
when...
awful.
Yeah, he's just...
Awful coach.
He's no emotion whatsoever. I don't see... And that's not necessarily saying he's a bad coach because he doesn't show emotion, because you got a guy like Belichick who gets results without being that rah-rah, guy like a Rex Ryan or somebody. Yeah. But Caldwell he's just deadpan, and he just... it's accepted culture to be mediocre under Jim Caldwell, and that's what he said the post-game press conference. Well, it's a new season now. We're starting over because we made the playoffs. Well, the only reason you made the playoffs is because the Washington Redskins lost. So you don't deserve to be there necessarily. You didn't put yourself in a position to be there.
Let me ask you this about Caldwell and the Lions. Say the Seahawks blow the doors off you guys. Let's say 38-10 or 45-17 or whatever. It's just a real embarrassing loss.
Yep.
Is there a chance he loses his job?
I don't think so. I think he's going to get one more year no matter what happens. But I think if you don't see a significant improvement next year, then he should. If they don't make the playoffs next year, he's gone. I would say. I'm a big believer of giving a coach at least 4 years. Like what the 49ers did with Chip Kelly.
They're paying like $69 million
Yeah.
for. They've had like 3 different coaches in 3 years.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Why do you bring in a guy that you know is going to completely change what you've been trying to do and then only give him 2 years? It's like what Michigan did with Rich Rodriguez years ago.
Rod.
They gave him. They knew they hired a guy who was completely opposite of everything the Big Ten stood for as far as running a football program.
Exactly.
And they gave him 4 years, and his guys were just, his recruited guys were just starting to get to the point where they're juniors and seniors, and then they let him go. And Brady Hoke comes in and wins a bowl game the next year, but got worse every single year under Brady Hoke.
Now, Josh McDaniels and Matt Patricia, the two Patriots coordinators, are up for. I think Patricia's actually going to interview with the Chargers. I think I read that yesterday with San Diego. I read somewhere that someone said that Josh McDaniels would be a smart move to go to San Francisco. Very unstable ownership.
Yeah.
Forget McDaniels, and I wouldn't want to coach there. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Who would want that job right now?
I mean, you've had 3 different coaches in the past 3 years. I mean, they should fire the freaking owner. Oh wait, they can't do that. Right? I mean,
exactly.
I
mean, seriously though, who? If I'm a big time college coach getting recruited by the NFL, I'm not going to go to San Francisco. No. If I'm a coordinator looking for my first shot, I don't want it to be. That team is in shambles right now. I'd rather coach the Cleveland Browns than the San Francisco 49ers.
And now we really know why Colin Kaepernick was kneeling before all those games. He was praying for a new coach.
Yeah, I saw that. And you know what? That's a good spot to end it because we're coming up toward 45 minutes
here.
It?
So are we done?
I know.
Oh man,
time flies when you're having fun. But that's just week 1. That is episode 1.
Nice job, buddy.
Of the Talkin Balls podcast.
You're
Great
gonna get
job.
this uploaded?
He's Keith Rice. I'm Shane McKenzie. We're going to be on Gmail, talkinballspodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook at Talkin Balls Pod. Same thing on the Twitter. I just called it the Twitter. I didn't mean to do that. But at Talkin Balls Pod. So we're all over social media. I'm going to upload this to our websites, wcty.com. I think, Keith, you could probably upload it to the Roxy website.
Yeah, I could.
I'm going to put it in as many places as I can so it's easy to find for people.
And then what do they do? Go like us on iTunes? Or how do they, I
got to figure the iTunes part of it out. But I'll see what I can do with that. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to go back and try to see as many of these comments as I can and reply to as many of them as I can. So thanks for checking us out, guys. We'll be back next week. All right.
Dude, that flew by. That was great.
How do you log?